First, real quick, just to kind of briefly go through the agenda. So when we wrap up here in the shed, we're going to head out to the pastures and spend about an hour and a half or so, hour and 15, learning about what the Bedtkes have going on out there. And then just before 3, we'll come back here. We'll close up out there, come back here, and then those who want to stick around for the farm crisis discussion are more than welcome to do so. If you'll open your packets to the back of the first page, you'll see there's a pasture walk schedule. So we've launched a couple of grazing groups. We've already had our first meeting for the north group and our first meeting for the south group. So we do have a couple upcoming meetings you can see on the list. This is handy, just keep it on your fridge, and they're open groups. You're welcome to attend any or all. They're geared around farmer-to-farmer learning. And then the next page in your packets is a brief summary of some resources on the dairy crisis. And then there are several blogs done by various LSP staff featuring Olaf Haugen, who runs a grazing dairy, Darren McGowan, also a dairy grazer, and Chuck Henry, also a dairy grazer. So yeah, if Shona could come up. Adam and Alex and I on Wednesday got pretty excited about collecting some soil from different fields out here to do a slake test. So how many people here have seen a slake test demo before? Okay, a lot of you. So the idea is just to get a visualization of how stable your soil is at aggregate stability. So we've taken chunks of soil that we collected, dried them out. Some of them we air dried, and then we also collected a few this morning and microwaved them, which works equally well. You can break it open and it's pretty dry inside. So first thing to do is kind of look at your different samples and what the management is on those different fields. So we've got this one on the far, it'd be your far left, is from a conventional cornfield. One in from that is one of the Bedtke's organic cornfields, which is in rotation with some perennials. Second from the right is a crop rotation with grazing. So I think that was a field that was chopped corn last year, no-tilled with rye in the fall. Then this spring, no-tilled with a succotash mix, and that's what it's in right now. And then the far right is a perennial pasture that hasn't been tilled up for at least 15 years, and Adam will talk about that a little bit when we get out there. These two fields we'll be stopping at. So Shona maybe can observe a couple of the clods and tell you a little bit about how they look. You can look at things like roots and pores and smell.
Yep.
Describe it a bit.
All right, so this one I'm grabbing is the perennial pasture. I mean, I think you guys can all see right away that it's pretty well aggregated. We got roots. We have little bits of aggregates hanging off of those roots. It looks like the color is a little bit darker than some of the other soil clods. So I'd expect that this would do pretty well based on the structure that we're seeing with this soil. The next one that we have is crop rotation with grazing. This one is not quite as aggregated. Comparing it to the other two that are sitting there, it doesn't have quite as sharp of angles in the soil structure. So it does look like it has some micropores in there, not as big of the macropores like the other one, but maybe this one will do pretty well too. There are some smaller roots inside of it as well. You want to do the other two, or should I keep going? All right, looks like we have organic corn ground next. Actually, this one looks fairly similar to the crop rotation with grazing, maybe a little bit more angular. There's actually a little bit of striations in the soil. The ground might have been worked a little bit more with this one. And then lastly, we have conventional corn. It is definitely probably the most angular. You can actually, see where the shovel went down and really just slated it, made that straight, solid line cut right there. So I'm not seeing very many micropores. We'll see how it does.
And part of what holds these together is microbes in the soil produce kind of glues that hold things together. So this is a bit of an indicator, it can be, of how biologically active your soils are. So, and it's related to, I think, intensity of tillage. So, Shona, do you want to drop them in and then?
Sure. Should we get someone, maybe, let's see, who's an expert out here? Chuck Henry? Do you want to? Which one's going to do the best? Which one's gonna hold its structure the best?
This one.
This one. Okay. All right. We'll test them out.
Worst? Do we have a guess for worst?
Oh yeah. Does anyone have a guess for worst?
I guess which water column at the end do you think is going to be the cloudiest?
Yeah.
Have the most sediment in it?
I would see conventional corn.
The conventional corn. Okay, so this one is going to be the best, the cleanest water, and this one will have a dirty water column. Okay, should we drop them?
Yeah. I'll do these two. Yep.
Ready? Beating. Ready? Yes.
I think he's volunteering to do all this.
Yeah, so it looks like the conventional corn right away is slaking off some huge aggregates. We definitely have some air bubbles coming up on that. Of course, the perennial pasture, it's really looking like it's holding its form, even though I had a lot of separated macro aggregates. Yeah, the conventional corn is really breaking down. If you can't see, you're welcome to come forward and check it out. And we'll just leave this going for the rest of the day. Are you going to have it up here?
Yeah.
Fiona?
Yeah. I mean, you're welcome to come back at the end and see how much is left in those screens at the top. All this is a column of water with some hardware cloth that we've cut out some of the crossbars on, so it's a little more open. And it's just suspended in water.
Actually, the organic corn seems like it's holding better than the crop rotation with grazing.
Is that organic corn crop rotation with grazing?
I don't know.
Nope, the crop rotation with grazing is the one that's right now in rye with succotash mix underneath it. Cool. Well, Adam and Amanda Bedtke, this is their farm. Their son Ethan, right here at the table, was also really helpful in getting things set up, I know. They graze cattle on a wide variety of forages, including perennial pasture, cover crops, and small grains. And one of the highlights, I would say, is that they have a very adaptable system, and they don't purchase commercial fertilizer, which I think is pretty rare. So I'd like to introduce Adam and invite him to come up and give a little background on his farm. And also, maybe if Amanda could raise her hand so that you know you can ask her questions, especially of the numbers, big picture sort. She does a lot of the bookkeeping. So here's Adam.
She does all the bookkeeping. Thanks for coming, everyone, today. I know I'd have trouble going to a field day when it's this nice out. So everyone met Amanda. Just wave so the other kids are taking their naps. Some brief history on this farm. Some of it's my history growing up. I was in 7th grade when my dad switched from conventional to grazing, and I was just old enough. I, was the sidekick and, learned along with him, and so I was exposed at a very young age, and it worked. It just worked with the cows out on the grass. And so, I'm almost 40, and so every year you always learn a little more. Even though, remember my ag instructor in high school said, you're wasting your time. At a year at short course in Madison, came back, rented a conventional farm, and Dad was still grazing. I'm the oldest child, and there's 4 other younger siblings, so there was not enough room at Dad's farm at that time. So I was renting a conventional farm. Grade B, my milk check was $9.08 a hundredweight when Dad first got on the organic truck. His price was $18 a hundredweight. For twice the price, you can figure out how to make it go organic. And now that I'm organic, I don't know if I would ever go back, even if the market wasn't there. There's a lot of management and practices and styles that I know I wouldn't change. And some of it is, I remember as a little child, Dad filling the corn planter. You can't stick your hand in that corn seed. But you're putting it out on the land, and that's what you're feeding your cattle. You know, so it's just a lot of little things that click and just make a lot of sense. And some of it is, I love having my kids out with me. And there's no better place than throwing them on the gator and, hey, let's go look for baby calves. The crop sprayer isn't spraying the field right next to you. And then reading a lot more about, articles by Gabe Brown kind of led me into maybe planting some different crops or different species in with the soil, and just what you can do without going to the co-op and buying fertilizer. Because there's organic fertilizer you can buy to, they'll sell you anything to raise nice corn. So I didn't catch it on one of the first clips Leanna sent out. We don't buy fertilizer for our corn, but it doesn't mean it's not fertilized. And some of that's the crop you plow under. And if there isn't an overabundance of that, those fields definitely have higher priority for manure. So there is still management there, and you're trying to get the right nutrients out there because you do need a decent corn crop. Yeah. Anyway, fast forward now. We have 4 kids and 50 cows out on pasture. We try and grow our own feed. We're a little short. Last winter we ran out. I don't think we're the only farm that ran out of feed. So just want to show you guys a little bit of what we're doing and what has worked for us, a few things that haven't worked for us. And a lot of it's about networking, and everyone's tried different things, and some things work great on some people's farms and might not work on the next farm. So hope you enjoy the tour, and thanks for coming.
So just a quick announcement for anybody, we're going to be walking probably, 1/10 of a mile or so